Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some products from Hero Arts. I am using the stamps and dies, well, one sets of stamps and dies and stencils from the May 2025 Hero Studio card kit. And then this other flower I thought maybe I might use, that's from the clear stamp and die, and then this other one is the layering stencil. They're all separate, or you can get them all in the whole studio. But we're going to talk about some tips for stenciling. So my first tip, as you can see in the background there, is the sticky mat. The sticky mat is my friend when it comes to stenciling, and it means that I can cut down on the tape. Now, all of Hero Art stencils have these kind of four corners that are cut out. This is super beneficial to us because we can take an alcohol marker. In my case, I used a Copic, but you could use a Sharpie. And then I just put dots in where those corners go. So then every stencil, no matter how many stencils are in my color layering set, I can just line up those dots and know that everything is going to line up perfectly. This is so... For me, the biggest part of stenciling that I struggle with is getting them all lined up, especially if I'm layering them. So that makes it nice and easy. Here's another thing that I do that helps me kind of use my stencils more and figure out how to use them. And this is what you're seeing right here. I just pick one color. In my case, I'm using my Carved Pumpkin Distress ink because it came kind of like really juicy, and so I know there's a ton of ink in there, so it makes it nice and easy to do my ink blending. But I put each layer, like each stencil on, and I just do them all in the same color because I know I'll be able to see them. You know, the color is going to build up and it's going to get darker with each consecutive stencil. But then this helps me when I'm going forward in creating my layers and pulling out what colors I'm going to need or putting together in my head how it's going to look, by knowing what layers do what. So that way I know, okay, well, you know, I want, like on this layer in particular, okay, so like this is the detail layer for some of the leaves, but it's also the detail layer for some of the centers. So maybe I want to do my centers yellow and I want to do my leaves green. So maybe I tape off my centers and then do the leaves and then come back and do the centers after I've removed the tape. The sticky mat is super easy to clean, whether you're using a pigment ink or a dye ink, it just pretty much wipes right off, but it leaves those dots. If you want to remove your dots, you could just go in there with a little bit of rubbing alcohol or colorless blender solution and remove it. So both of these are the stencils that are included in the kit. If you're watching this after the fact, ones that are similar are the rose background. That's the one you see on the right, is pretty similar to the color layering. And then the one to the left is actually the one I'm going to end up using today, which is Wonderful Day. And so this allows us, and this is me using the Wonderful Day one, and I'm doing it the same way so I can figure out what my layers are going to look like. This one does create a bouquet, but the nice one about this one is if you get the bundle, so it has the die included, the die will cut out the whole bouquet or the die will cut out each individual flower. So either which way you want to use it. I love that versatility. So again, I'm just going in using that same color, really paying attention to what puts down what. So that way, and this is great, even if like you want to use glitter pastes or, you know, anything like that, you can see what exactly is going to be put on in the paste. Now, let's talk about the inks we're actually going to use. These are Hero Hue's reactive glitz inks. I did not even know these were a thing on the market until I taught in one of their classes, and two of them were part of the kit. The Egyptian blue and the green. Byzantine green, I think is maybe what it is. So these inks are pigment inks, but they already have like a shimmer metallic that's inside them already. So when you put the ink down, we're going to be doing ink blending with it today, but it would be true if you were stamping with it as well. It already has lots of shimmer in it. So when you put the ink down and then you tilt it in the light, it has a beautiful metallic shimmer. So first things first that I noticed with this, you can see that I'm kind of struggling to get the color down a little bit. Now I'm using the same Hero Arts brushes that I always use. So I'm not entirely sure, like, see how hard I'm having such a hard time getting it down. Here is the trick that I learned, is not how you normally, like, you would do the circles over your ink pad to pick up the color. But with this, if you just tap it into the ink pad, you get so much more ink and so much more metallic that is the way to go. So you don't want to swirl it onto the ink pad like you normally would. You want to almost like blot it. And then that helps you pick up a lot more color. Now, for these particular flowers, these are the stencils that's included in the kit. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other ones. I'm not like just sticking to one color for one flower. I'm sticking to pretty much the warmer colors. And I left that little part in where I cleaned the stencil just to show you that it doesn't stain your stencils. Like, as long as you're cleaning it off right away, it wiped away really easily, and I didn't have to like take it to the sink to wash it or anything like that. So here, this is the detail layer, and I'm just going in and doing the same 3 colors of ink. This is the French pink, the Spanish orange, and the Naples yellow. And I'm just going right over top of that to put down the detail layer. Now, in some cases, it's easier to see than others, but in person you can see them all. Like, sometimes it's just a little bit more challenging. So now we are going to move on to the cooler colors. There are 6 colors in this collection, and so I'm using the African violet and then that Egyptian blue and Byzantine green that I talked about before. The Egyptian blue is more on the teal side. It's one of my favorite colors. Not that you're shocked, because you know, guys, that blue is my boyfriend. So really, I'm really enjoying these. I liked them when I got the 2 in the kit, so much so that I purchased the other ones on my own, because you know that I love shimmer, I love shine, and these are a fantastic way to get that without really having to do any work at all. So if you are interested in trying them, they're, in the store whenever you would like to check them out. But currently, Hero Arts is having a color sale, and it's 25% off. And that today is the last day. I apologize for getting this video up so late. I actually made this last week, and I just didn't get it together with everything that I have going on. So it's been going on since May 6th through the 13th. Here I am on the last day. But anyway, they're doing all of their inks. These reactive glitz inks included. There you can see that shimmer as it catches in the light. And then we're going to move on to the one that is not kit based. So you guys know, when I do these videos with the Hero Studio, that I do like to do one with the kit items and then show you how you can do the same thing, even if you're not using the kit, using regular everyday products that are in the stores. But anyway, there's 25% off color sale. That's inks, that's paper, like cardstock, gems, embossing powder, what was the other thing that was in there? Cardstock. I love their cardstock. So all of those things are in there. There's pages and pages of the color sale that I would highly recommend that you check out. They also have a last chance section, which the sentiment that I'm going to use for this card is from a set that's called The Sweetest, and that one is in there. It is in the last call, which I didn't realize when I picked it, but it just, I have no regrets, because honestly, it fit perfectly, because it says thanks a bunch. But anyway, these were super easy to use once I figured out that little trick of kind of like tapping the ink onto the brush instead of swirling it. Definitely worked a lot better. I didn't really have any issues with putting the ink down, outside of one little hang up that I had. I think it was with the blue one, because pigment inks act more like distress oxides. I guess would be like, so sometimes if you are just using the same ones over and over again and that pigment ink dries into the bristles, sometimes it can be hard to get it going again so that it's a smooth, even application. When that happens, I like to kind of take mine. Here, I'll show you this, the shimmer again here. From, you can see it in the light. Obviously, in person, it is much nicer to look at. But here, this one has 2 butterflies included, and I wanted to use those. So I'm just holding these in place because I'm only doing one, like, very quick color. I'm just doing the Spanish orange, and I'm doing them in the bottom corner so that I can die cut them out as well. What was I saying? I was saying something that had a point. But do I know what it was? Nope, it's left me. What were we just talking about? I don't know. Moving on. Maybe it'll come back to me. So here, there is a container. There's actually 2 containers in the studio kit. So that one, I was able to just stamp the container, and it has a large sentiment. For the other one, I don't really have a container that I can use in any of my Hero Art stamps. So I'm going to DIY one. I pulled out my infinity hexagons. I chose a good size, and then I'm going to decorate it. Here's that one I was telling you about, the sweetest. And then this one's geometric frames. And I'm using that one to decorate the bowl so that it has a similar look to the actual card kit. And then the one from the card kit will say thank you. And the one from that's just the regular everyday products will say thanks a bunch. And so that's going to act as, that hexagon is going to act as my bowl to put my florals in. But I mean, essentially, like I said, we're going to be making the same card. One's just, hey, you can do it this way. And the other one is, hey, you can do it that way. If you are not subscribed to the kit, but you would like to be, and you want this kit to be one of the ones that you get, I believe it's open until the 27th that you can sign up for it. But they do, and after the 27th, anything that they have will go back into their regular stock. So you can pick it up there if you just want, the individual elements versus the whole thing. But you're running the risk because then they sell out. So that's all, I think that's all the information I have on that, I think. And then we're going to stamp this in gold. I originally pulled out my, I treated it with my anti-static tool, but I originally pulled out my Honeybee Gold Metallic because that one is my favorite ink. But it clearly, look how sad this is. It clearly needs to be re-inked. So I left this one on my desk to someday re-ink it. And I just grabbed the one that I have from Altenew, which is, I think, the antique gold. And I used that and it worked fine. They're both good. I just have a tendency to use the Honeybee one a bit more. So the one on the bottom left that you see me stamping is the one that I've just traced the outline, because remember, that's going to be a die. So once I have those done, then I will sprinkle on some gold embossing powder from Hero Arts, and then I will heat set that until it is smooth, and then I'm going to go back in and add the detail layers to the stamp from the kit, this larger kind of base, and finish out the sentiment for the bottom. So speaking of kits, I had talked to you guys a little bit yesterday in my video about, I like talking about doing my mom's nails. So one of the reasons why I was on the hustle to get her nails done is because we bought those like hand casting kits. Now my middle sister had bought them a while ago. But we just never did them. And like, I'm just going to tell you now, as somebody who's living this currently, like, we didn't do them because we thought, that we would have enough time to do them. And that's one of the toughest things in life, I think, is thinking that you have more time to do the things that are important than you actually have to do them. Like, that clock is running all of the time for all of us. So don't take those things for granted. fortunately, we are still able to do them. And so basically, if you're not familiar with what they are, it's a molding plaster kit. So basically, the ones that we had came with a bucket. And then it did come with like a trial, like a small package for the molding, and then a small package for the casting, and then a large package for the molding and a large package for the casting. Side note, back to the card. So here I'm just going through and lining up all of the dies to cut these out. The ones that you see up here on the top right, those are all from the kit. But I do have the bundles for the other ones, so I also have dies for those. So anyway, so it comes with the bucket, it comes with a testing amount, it comes with the full amount, and then mine came with 2 large bamboo skewers to stir with. And I'm in the United States. So like normally we would be measuring in like cups and ounces and things. All of the measurements were in milliliters. Here's that die I was telling you about. This one on the left cuts them all out individually. This one on the right will cut it out as a full piece. I am going to use the one that cuts them out individually because I want to be able to arrange them in my bowl. But essentially, you could do the same thing that we're doing with the other one and cutting them out as one full piece and then just sticking them in that way. That would work. I just thought it worked better the other way. And then here's me cutting out that hexagon piece that we're going to turn into the bowl. So once I have the hexagon piece cut out, I am kind of like laying out my flowers to make sure how tall I need it to be. And then I will go ahead. This paper trimmer from Fiskars does have a wire guide in it, so it will show me exactly where I am cutting. I did leave a little bit of a higher gap at the top because I wanted to be able to add a little detail. In order to add that detail, I am using a embossing pen. In this case, I'm using one from Ranger, but you can also use one from Versamark, and I'm doing just 2 lines to add some detail, and then I am taking that marker and tracing it right along the edges so that it will look as if it was embossed just like the other one is. So when I do this, I typically, so you can see I'm holding it in the middle because that's all embossed. Once I get this where I need to be, so I'm just going to do one little corner and melt it. And then I'm going to wait till that's cool. I will double check that it's cool so that I don't worry about putting any marks in it with my tweezers. And then I can hold it with my tweezers and do the rest of it. So the whole casting thing is in milliliters. Okay, so here's what I have at my mother's house. I have a 4-cup measuring cup. I have a 1-cup measuring cup, and then I have a 2-cup measuring cup, like the Pyrex ones, right? So 2 cups is 500, 4 cups is 1,000, but I need 18. And so the other cup only goes to 200. It doesn't go to 3. So I put the water in the 4-cup and in the 2-cup, and then I have to proceed to fill up the 1 cup to 100 milliliters 3 times, adding it to each of the other ones to get my full 18. So then you put that in the bucket, right? And then it says, figure out what your position is going to be. So the ones that we did first is my son went first, Peanut went first. And so we took the bucket in there, and Mom's pretty limited, with her movements. So we were trying to, get a position that was going to be comfortable for him, comfortable for her. We ended up having to stack her arm with a bunch of pillows. But so he gets the hand or whatever, and I'm like, okay, great, now I can mix this in. And then it tells me, now dump the water out, dry the container, put the powder in, and then add your water. I'm like, what? Why did you have me measure it in the first place? That was just rude. side note about the card here. So see that little like darker part that I put in? I put that in so it would really like, my idea was that it would kind of like make my highlight pop forward. It didn't really work that well. So if I had to do it again, I would just add the shading from the left and the right sides, and I would leave that part out. Just being honest with you guys. So, but also, can we talk about, look at that little added detail on our little half a hexagon here, just with using the ruler and the Distress ink embossing pen. Like, it looks great. You would not know that that was not an intentional kind of stamp. I was thrilled with the way that that came out. So anyway, so I do what it tells me, and I dump the water out and I dry the bucket out, and then I put the powder in, and then I have to remeasure all of the water, and I'm trying to pour the water in bit by bit and mix it, because you only have a certain amount of time to mix it before it starts to set. So you're like, you have no idea what you're doing, and you're against the clock. And you're against the clock. So I get it mixed, and when it's wet, it's purple. And so I get it all incorporated. I put it up on, the bed that mom's in. They get their hands in there. And right away, my son is like, it's already starting to harden. He's like, I can feel it. So it says that it could take 5 to 8 minutes. So you have to stand there, like, obviously for mom, like, she's laying, so she's super chill, but like my son has to stand there for 5 to 8 minutes. And unless you have stood perfectly still with your limbs in a slightly awkward position, I don't think you really recognize how challenging it's going to be, because it was. Okay, let's go back to the card. So here, I just like to add a little detail into my cards. Not everybody does. You could totally skip this. But I did go in with my white gel pen and just kind of highlight the added layers of the inking. So, if that was the centers, or maybe where some of the lines went down that were meant to look like petals. Obviously, these aren't super realistic, but I did feel like the white gel pen added a lot to them. Plus, if you had maybe some layers where there wasn't as much contrast, adding the white on there would definitely bump up the contrast so that you can see all of the different layers. So I double checked that everything was good. Now I need a shelf or a counter or whatever to set my flowers on, something to ground them. So I just cut 2 pieces of sand cardstock, and then I'm going to add a little bit of shading with brushed corduroy, and then I'll do my own kind of wood grain. It's not hard. It's just a bunch of swirls, and then you do it with your darkest color, go over it with your mid-tone, fill it in with your lightest color. I promise you, it's super simple. So anyway, he's like, yeah, it's getting tight already. So we are waiting. He's like hunched over the bed. So I'm like trying to put my arm so that he can lean on it, as the minutes are ticking down. But it ended up taking about 10 minutes for not the part around their hands to set, but the full bucket to set. So then once the full bucket's set, then you kind of have to wiggle your fingers and get it to where it's kind of starting to loosen. So I told Peanut, I was like, you have the littler hand, you wiggle your fingers, and then we'll try to go from there. So I kind of helped by pushing on the side of the bucket, pushed on the side of the bucket so that it would kind of help start moving that molding. So he was able to get his hand out, and then we were able to get mom's hand out, and then I just wiped hers off with a washcloth basically, and he went to go wash his hands, and then we were good. Mold was set. So then here's the second part of it. The mold is set, but now we have to do the casting. Well, the casting is you have to mix it, and then in parentheses says, in your own bucket. Excuse me? Pardon me. In my own bucket? Don't you think that we should have led with this? Or if you needed 2 buckets, maybe just added an extra $2 onto this kit and stacked my 2 buckets into my box? Because who just has a bucket laying around that they're going to mix plaster into and then they're just going to pitch? You have to prepare us. So needless to say, we were unprepared. We ended up using, I think no, it was like a Glad container that was probably a little too big, honestly. Here, what I'm doing is I'm just using those same colors of browns just to add a shadow underneath my container. And for this one, I'm going to pop the flowers up on a foam. And for the other one, I'm going to pop the bowl up on foam. So I tell my husband, hey, can you mix the casting and pour it in while I do the next one, which is my daughter's? And he was like, yeah, no problem. Well, then with the casting, you have one, like it tells you you have to mix it for 60 seconds. And then you only have another 60 seconds to pour it into the mold. Like, so make sure it's all incorporated, but be quick about it because otherwise it's going to start to set. And so he was, just doing the best that he could. Here, what you just saw me doing was basically just going in and filling in those edges so that they blend in. I did that with the light blue as well as this darker blue, just so that you couldn't see any of those white lines. Typically, I do this with stamped images, but you can also do it with stenciled images. You just kind of have to pay a little bit more attention to where that edge is. But I didn't have any issues. It worked out really well. For these two little flowers, I glued them directly to the bowl so that they would also be popped up. And then I glued everything else down flat and then added my foam tape. So he's doing the mixing for the plaster and pouring them in there. I'm trying to do my daughter's. I was very apprehensive she wouldn't be able to sit still for the whole thing. But I asked her, I was like, you got to be really still. Are you sure you want to do it? And she said yes. So this time around, because her hand is littler, I folded a washcloth underneath to put it underneath their wrists because, the side of the bucket was not very comfortable. And probably about 2 to 3 minutes in, she was like, I don't want to do it anymore. And she's like crying and she's starting to move. And I'm like, no, like, please stand still. You're going to ruin it. Like, so I was like, well, what if because you guys know, if you watch my videos from way back, she loves the Taylor Swift. She's a huge fan. I was like, what if we watch Taylor videos while we wait? And she was like, oh, okay. So that is yes, I bribed her. Normally I am not that kind of parent, but you got to do what you got to do to be able to have these keepsakes for the rest of their lives. So, my intention is to do one for myself with my mother as well, and I would like to get one with my parents. If that doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but at least my children will have them. And I would recommend doing them. We'll talk about the outcome of those on the next video maybe. But here, I'm just giving you one last look at the shimmer. I love the way that these came out. Don't forget, if you're interested in the color sale, it ends tonight at midnight. Otherwise, you can use any distress inks with those stenciling tips. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.